Today, as lawyers, we are waging this battle to make sure where we're trying to grow our practices, make more money, and have clients. On the other hand, we're exhausted, we can't sleep, and it's a wonder why we're struggling. Emotional freedom techniques is a tool that can mitigate the stress that we feel as lawyers, and undo the stress that undermines the quality of our practice. And it's also known as tapping. It's an energy modality that is effective at lowering cortisol levels, the hormone that is associated with many different types of stress.
Welcome, and thank you all for joining us for another Justia webinar. My name is Nina, and I'll be the moderator for today. Now, to kick things off, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Michelle D. Thompson. Michelle D. Thompson is a business coach who works with women lawyers who are working 70 to 90 hours per week and are feeling near burnout to grow their practices and increase billables without sacrificing their health and their time with their friends and families. With almost 3 decades in law and academia and over 10 years of experience as a professional coach, Michelle helps her clients achieve professional sanity and a variety of embodied techniques that combine left and right brain strategies, from emotional freedom techniques, which we'll hear about today, to strategic planning. The webinar presentation that you're about to watch will be approximately 1 hour, and Michelle will be taking questions from the audience if there is time. So if you have questions that arise, you can always submit them by clicking the Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen and sending them in there. Now, without further ado, here is Dr. Michelle Thompson to discuss emotional freedom techniques, EFT, and ethical well-being, tools for a healthier, more grounded legal practice.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Justia, for having me here. And I'm excited to do this with you. Let me start here. The Journal of Addiction Medicine had an article called "The Prevalence of Substance Use and Other Mental Health Concerns Among American Attorneys." Their findings were upsetting, right? 28% of lawyers experienced symptoms of depression, 19% struggled with severe anxiety, and 23% showed symptoms of stress. I had a client who came to me our first call happened after she'd been awake for 72 hours at a time. She was an M&A lawyer. She was experiencing arrhythmia, she had really high blood pressure, and her life was absolutely miserable. As we used emotional freedom techniques, you could see the stress come down in her body, and her medical factors actually started to shift for the better. She started to work with the headhunter to pull another position for her. And on the last day, she sat down with one of the partners of the firm. He said, "You're making a mistake, please stay." She was interested. He laid out why it would be valuable to keep her there. And he said, "What do you need?" She was calm enough and centered enough in her body that she could say, "I need a different partner to work with, and I need a bunch of other things to make that happen." They gave it to her and she stayed. What's important about this is when you're actually not in a state of fight, flight, or freeze, you can actually take the actions as a lawyer to serve the clients that you're serving. So you heard that my introduction. I help lawyers grow their practices and profitability and scale so that they can serve their clients without burning out. Normally, I teach business strategy. Today, we're going to focus on the somatic body work issues, because the truth is you can't do the rest of it if you're exhausted all the time. So today, as lawyers, we are waging this battle to make sure where we're trying to grow our practices, make more money, and have clients. On the other hand, we're exhausted, we can't sleep, and it's a wonder why we're struggling, right? That's why that's the case. That's why, as a business coach for lawyers, one of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today is about taking care of your health and your body. We're going to use emotional freedom techniques as a way to do that. So today, we're going to do a review of legal ethics with examples of the underlying argument that well-being is a critical part of making sure practitioners can comply with ethical requirements for a license. We will talk about how EFT can help practitioners who may be experiencing some of the ethical challenges discussed. And then finally, we'll talk about what is EFT, why it works, the research behind it, and a short participation exercise using it. So if you really want to transform this current state for you as a lawyer and get to a place where you have a thriving practice, however you define that, and still have time for yourself, we're going to talk a lot about that today. And I'll tell you more about how you can do this more at the end of this. So when our wellness is compromised, it puts us at risk of making unethical decisions, right? And emotional freedom techniques is a tool that can mitigate the stress that we feel as lawyers, and undo the stress that undermines the quality of our practice. So for the ethics part, we're going to talk about 3 parts: the duty of competence, due diligence, and communication. First, we'll start with the duty of competence. Rule 1.1. A lawyer shall provide, and all of this is being taken out of the ABA's model rules of professional conduct. A lawyer shall provide competent representation to a client. Competent representation requires the legal knowledge, skill, and thoroughness and preparation reasonably necessary for the representation. So let's look at a fact pattern of someone who's not managing duty of competence well, and then we'll talk about how an EFT could actually help this particular person. We have a lawyer, we'll call him Mr. Dithers. He has a client who needs to file a claim in the niche area of intellectual property law, specifically involving a patent dispute involving a new type of quantum computing algorithm. Mr. Dithers, eager to get the client and their lucrative case, assures them that he's completely capable of handling the matter. In reality, he has no experience whatsoever with the specialized area of law. He figures he can just read up on it, but he fails to consult with an expert, conduct adequate research, or take a crash course in the field. He files the claim with a critical procedural error. He misses a specific, non-obvious deadline required for this type of dispute. This error is entirely due to his lack of knowledge and preparation. As a direct result, the client's case is dismissed, and they lose their multi-million-dollar claim. Mr. Dithers, in this particular circumstances, failed to provide competent representation as required by Rule 1.1, and the client is now suing him for malpractice and reporting him to the state bar. Whew! So how can EFT help here? Well, one part of this might be you can use EFT to tap away the feelings of imposter syndrome, of I can't do this, I don't know how to do this, right? You can also tap for mental clarity so you actually take the correct steps. Wow, why don't I talk to someone in this field and figure out how this goes? You can also tap on procrastination, so you're not putting this off until the last moment. So they're very, very concrete ways in which this tool, and I'll tell you more about it later, can actually help. Next, we have the duty of due diligence. Rule 1.3, a lawyer shall act with reasonable diligence and promptness in representing a client. Here we have, I'm going to talk about Sarah. Sarah's representing a client, John, who is looking to purchase his first home. John has a specific budget and a clear list of must-have features, including a fenced yard for his dog and a good school district for future planning. Let's say that she has a lot on her mind because of everything that's happening within her community. Sarah rushes through the purchase agreement, not highlighting important clauses or contingencies for John. She doesn't fully explain the implications of waiving certain rights or the timelines for earnest money deposits. Sarah ends up not showing any genuine excitement or interest in helping John find his dream home. She views it as just another transaction, failing to connect with John's goals and anxieties as a first-time buyer. She doesn't proactively suggest other properties that might fit John's criteria better, nor does she go the extra mile to schedule showings at convenient times for him. How can EFT help here? She can tap for mental clarity so that she's really clear about what her priorities need to be and what those priorities are vis-a-vis her client, making sure that he has all the information that he needs. She can tap on the boredom if that's what she's up against, right? If she's like, just another case, we can tap on that and really alleviate those sets of feelings so she can get to the work that she needs to do. She can also tap on any feelings that she has about her client. Maybe she feels like he's demanding, whatever. She can actually tap on that so that she can take on his work with the zeal that's required. And finally, communication. A lawyer shall promptly inform the client of any decision or circumstance with respect to the client's informed consent, as defined in Rule 1, subpoint E. It's required by these rules. Reasonably consult with the client about the means by which the client's objectives are to be accomplished. Keep the client reasonably informed about the status of the matter. Promptly comply with reasonable requests for information, and consult with the client about any relevant limitation on the lawyer's conduct when this lawyer knows that the client expects assistance not permitted by the rules of professional conduct or other law. A lawyer, we're going to call him Mr. Vague, is representing a client in a property dispute. Early in the case, opposing counsel sends a settlement offer that is quite favorable to Mr. Vague's client. However, it comes with a really tight deadline. Mr. Vague receives the email, but he's already dealing with a dozen other matters and finds difficult conversations with clients to be draining. He decides he'll call the client tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes never. He never, one, promptly informed the client of the settlement offer, which is a circumstance with respect to which the client's informed consent is required. The client, meanwhile, has been calling and emailing for weeks, asking for a status update. Mr. Vague never responds. He doesn't keep the client reasonably informed about the status of the matter or promptly comply with reasonable requests for the information. The deadline for the settlement offer passes, and the deal is rescinded. In a later phone call, the client learns of the missed opportunity and is furious. The case now proceeds to a costly trial with an outcome far less favorable than the original offer. Mr. Vague has not only breached his ethical duties under Rule 1.4, but has also inflicted a substantial financial loss on his client. For those of us who have avoided patterns, this runs afoul of the rule of nature that we're communicating with our clients. We can use EFT to tap away those patterns of avoidance that undermine our ability to represent our clients well. We can tap for focus so that we can actually sit down and do the work that needs to be done. And we can tap to build consistency with the work that we're doing. This is why it's crucial to make sure that your wellness is in tip-top shape. The model rules don't explicitly deal with impairment because of mental health challenges or addiction. However, this doesn't mean that you won't experience challenges with competence, diligence, or communication if you have issues here. Again, all of these issues are things that you can directly tap on. If you are struggling with an addiction to alcohol or gambling or any of these things, EFT is a very powerful tool to actually pull away the addiction so that you can focus on your client work in the way that you want to do. With that said, let's talk about EFT and how it can help. In this part, we'll talk about what is EFT, how does it work, what is the research supporting its efficacy, and we'll take some time to do a little bit of tapping together. So what are emotional freedom techniques? The EFT is short for emotional freedom techniques, and it's also known as tapping. It's an energy modality that is effective at lowering cortisol levels, the hormone that is associated with many different types of stress. EFT has a number of techniques that consist on tapping on meridian points on the hands, the head, and torso while talking about the event, thing, or person that is the underlying stressor. You just saw me tap on all of the points. While doing this, people experience substantial relief with symptoms associated with high stress, including physical pain, cravings, and addictions. It also helps to shift foundational beliefs that no longer serve them. Before I get into the parts of tapping, I want to say a little bit about why it works. Let's stop sharing for a little bit. The reason why tapping actually works is because it's taking time to lower your cortisol levels. when we are talking about the thing that we don't like and we're tapping, we're sending a signal to the part of our brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is it's the back of the brain. It's a small part of it, and it is responsible for putting us in a state of fight, flight, or freeze so that we can react quickly to problems that are coming up, right? And to do that, it puts into our systems cortisol and adrenaline. We all know adrenaline, right? You're on a roller coaster. What do you feel? An adrenaline rush. I personally don't like roller coasters, so I avoid that version of an adrenaline rush. The cortisol is something that we also experience regularly and is a very useful hormone, but also has pernicious effects on our bodies. Cortisol, when it's working well, gets us up in the morning and it diminishes over the day. And at night, we get melatonin and we can go to sleep. Cortisol actually enters our body when we're in a state of stress, so we can get up and do things, right? But when we are in a state of what's the word we're looking for? When we're in a state of stress that compounds and continues, our cortisol levels continue, and it starts to undermine us. Let me give you an example of how if things were. I mean, I gave you a couple of examples, but another example of how it works when it's working well. If you recall times in human existence when we weren't living in major cities or anything like that, and you actually would have to go hunt and gather your food, you might have looked out of your shelter and said, "Oh, look at that. There's a wild boar." And you know what? Wild boars are great because it gives you a lot of meat and you don't have to feed your family for 3 or 4 months. So you want to get that boar. But boars are not exactly nice creatures, right? And you might feel some anxiety about going ahead and doing it. Well, you grab your spear, you put on the coat, you run out, and we go head toe to toe with the wild boar. You kill it, you dress it, you come back, there's food for the family, there's skins for other reasons, and you are plumb tuckered out. But here's what happened. When you saw the wild boar and you thought, wow, this is going to be an important time for me to get food for my family, your amygdala sent adrenaline and cortisol into your system. So you could go ahead and do that. Get out of the place where you lived and move on. But then you ran really hard and you did all of this physical stuff to kill the boar. And then the cortisol level started to drop because we did all of this physical work to get your prey. But as lawyers, we get an email or maybe a text or a phone call, and it sends our cortisol levels up really high. And boy, we're worked up. And I guarantee most of you do not run around the block before you go ahead and handle the email, the phone call, or the text. And so our cortisol levels start to build. What happens to us when that happens? The best case scenario is that we get that middle. We have that tire around our middle, right? Because we're keeping it increases the amount of fat that we retain, and so we just can't seem to lose weight. We have a stubborn weight loss problem, and that's the benign part of it. But when things get really intense, sometimes you can't go to sleep when you're ready to go to sleep. It's midnight and you're like wide awake. Why? Because your cortisol levels are really, really high. And then by the time you go to sleep, you can't wake up because your cortisol levels are too low. There was a podcast I was listening to about another M&A lawyer who had worked at a law firm for, like 5 or 6 years. And her sleep patterns got so upset that by the time she left the firm, she ended up being bipolar. She's now, she's gotten treatment. She's okay now. But that's the level of upset that can cause, dis-ease, if you will, that can cause in your body. You don't want your cortisol levels to be at that rate. Whew, well, with all that talk about cortisol, know that EFT is a really effective tool in making sure that you can drop your cortisol levels so you don't end up in that state. So Let me give you a little bit about the research about tapping as well, because it all sounds good, but like, how do we know it works? I understand that. Let's get to that. There was a landmark study in 2012 from the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease, and that demonstrated that EFT had the ability to reduce the severity and range of psychological symptoms, particularly stress, and corresponding psychological reactions in a sample of non-clinical participants. 102 people from the general community attended a 3-day EFT workshop. Researchers found significant improvements in global and specific psychological distress, including somatization, obsessive compulsive behaviors, interpersonal sensitivities, depression, anxiety, hostility, phobic anxiety, paranoid ideation, psychoticism. The participants completed questionnaires about the symptoms 1 month before the workshop, immediately before, immediately afterwards, and then 6 months later. At the 6-month mark, global and specific improvements in psychological distresses were maintained. You can find these studies and many more in Peter Stapleton's book, The Science Behind Tapping. And I will go back to share my screen so you can get a sense of some of those resources, and you have them on the handout as well. So here we go. Right. There's the Peter Stapleton book. It's at the bottom of that bibliography. Dawson Church has written work about the effect of EFT on athletic performance, which includes making sure that athletes aren't too nervous to do what they do. Ella Jeffries talks about the improvement of mental health using EFT. It's actually posted on the Today website, the Today TV show website, and it talks about the combination of exposure therapy along with tapping that actually improves people's mental health. And Nick Ortner wrote a book called The Tapping Solution, which is a book that pretty much lays out how to do it, and Peter Stapleton's book does that as well. So this question is, so how do we do this? We start with the tapping fights, and you've seen me do them a couple times. You tap on the top of the head, on the eyebrows, the sides of the eye, underneath the eyes, above the lip, above the chin, collarbones, under the armpit, back to the side of the hand. That's great. But what do you do when you are doing that? When we start by doing some tapping, we set things up by tapping the sides of the hand, even though the thing you don't like, I completely love and accept myself, or some phrase that that's an affirmation or a suggestion that you accept and recognize what is. So you do that 3 times, and then you tap on the thing you don't like, the thing I 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 don't like. Okay, wait a minute, Michelle. Why on earth would I want to keep tapping on the thing I don't like? And it's because you're trying to lower your brain's reactivity to it, so you can drop the stress associated with it, right? I worked with a client who was working on a brief. She's actually a brilliant lawyer. She's been recognized in her state as one of the best appellate lawyers of the state. Really, really good. And then she sat down to do this brief, and she was at a loss. She called me. She's like, "I have to talk to you." I'm like, okay. She goes, "I have to get this done by tomorrow, and I've been working on it for 2 weeks." I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? And we tapped on it, right? By tapping on the fact that I am terrified of writing this brief, she actually could be relaxed about the fact that she was, instead of being really anxious about the fact that nothing was getting done, she could be relaxed with what was, and then she could actually figure out her way forward to making it happen. That brief was so good that the judge cited what she wrote, and she won absolutely every part of her brief that she submitted. That's pretty effective, right? So, we're gonna do some tapping right now. We're not gonna do a whole lot of it, but you'll get a picture of what this is like. And I'm gonna stop sharing again. As we do that, I'm gonna put in the chat, because, there are all the points and you have the points and all of that on the slides, but I also have created for you, oh, maybe someone can share it with everybody. I see I don't have access to that. I've created
And
you
Michelle, I'll send it out. Thank
great.
you.
I've created a video that you can use so that you can actually follow along and do it because it's a lot to keep track of. So I think what we'll do today is we will do a couple quick things, and we're going to just start by what's called touch and breathe. And it's a great way to get to know, to get a sense of the points. So we're just gonna, if you're here, just take your hand, put it on the top of your head, and take a deep breath in, and exhale. Put your fingers on your eyebrows, take a deep breath in, and exhale. Fingers on the sides of the eye, take a deep breath in, and exhale. Put your fingers underneath your eyes, take a deep breath in, and exhale. Fingers above the lips, take a deep breath in, and exhale. Fingers above the chin, take a deep breath in, and exhale. Fingers on the palm of bones, take a deep breath in, and exhale. Fingers underneath the arm, take a deep breath in, and exhale. Back to the top of my head, take a deep breath in, and exhale. So if you want, feel free to put in, I guess, the Q&A. I think that's the best thing I can see. If the difference you felt before and after we did that. It's very subtle. It didn't take very long, right? I can tell someone who's all revved up because I'm doing this, right? That I actually feel calmer. My body feels relaxed. You might have noticed a difference with that as well. So if you want, you can go ahead and put that. Calmer, yes, absolutely. And that wasn't difficult. It didn't take up a whole bunch of time and you're already feeling calmer, right? We're good. So that's something you can do anytime, any place. And more presence. Yes. Right? Exactly. Um, oh, I love the question of adding this. Essential oils are good for everything. If you wanted to add an essential oil, you could absolutely do that. But yes. But here's the thing. If you are in the middle, if you're about to go into trial or you're going to a negotiation or you're nervous about writing something, maybe you don't have the oil right there, you can just do that. That's fine. That works, right? So that's it's a super powerful to be able to do that. The other thing that happens with us, and we're just going to do a couple quick rounds of this when we are really stressed out, is that our bodies feel stressed. Our bodies hold that stress in different ways. And sometimes it's like just tightness and that. So we're going to do a very quick exercise with that. I want you to go ahead and turn your neck to the right and see, and if you will sign at a number of the clock, how far up did you go? And I'm at about a 4 o'clock on my right side. We're going to do the same thing on my left side. I'm about 5 o'clock on the left side. So we're just going to do a round or two with that and tap directly on it. Are you ready? I'm going to start by tapping on the side of the hand. You don't have to know anything, just follow. And repeat the phrase I'm going to say. I'm going to tell you where it's at. You don't have to repeat that. Just the phrase is even though my neck is tight, I'm just tapping on it. And I'm open to the possibility that this can shift. Even though my neck is tight, I'm open to the possibility that this can shift. Even though my neck is tight, I'm open to the possibility that this can shift. We're going to start tapping with top. My neck is tight. We're going to tap on the eyebrows. My neck is tight. Tap on the sides of the eye. My neck is tight. Tapping underneath the eyes. My neck is tight. Tapping above the lips. My neck is tight. Tapping above the chin. My neck is tight. Tapping on the collarbones. My neck is tight. Tapping underneath the arm. My neck is tight. And tapping on top of the head. My neck is tight. Take a deep breath in. And that's it. Now go ahead and turn your head to the right. Wow. So I'm at 5:30 on my right side. I'm going to turn my neck to the left as well. And then we got 5:30 on my left side. There's a lot more mobility. I'd be curious if you want to put it in the best with Q&A part. What shift have you seen just doing that one round of tapping on the tight neck? Maybe you didn't even know your neck was tight, but you'll words of power. I'm curious to see more about what you have to say about that. But yes, words do have power. Yeah. Yes, your neck is looser. It's crazy, right? But so much of the tightness that we experience in our bodies is it's completely connected with the cortisol buildup that we have, and we hold all of that in our bodies, right? And when we reduce that cortisol, that doesn't happen. We're gonna do one more round of that, and then I'll take some questions. Yeah, so back on the side thing I give them now. My neck is less tight. I'm open to the possibility that this could shift. Even though my neck is less tight, I'm open to the possibility that this can shift. Even though my neck is less tight, I'm open to the possibility that this can shift. Tap on top of the head. My neck is less tight. Tapping on the eyebrows. My neck is less tight. Tapping in on the sides of the eye. My neck is less tight. Underneath the eyes. My neck is less tight. Above the lip. My neck is less tight. Above the chin. My neck is less tight. Tapping on the collarbones. My neck is less tight. Tapping underneath the arm. My neck is less tight. On top of my head. My neck's less tight. Take a deep breath in. And then take a go ahead. Up. See, now on the right side, I'm at a 6. I have complete mobility. And a 6 on my left. So, if you want, you could put in the chat. Or it's absolutely my pleasure to explain how this works. It's such a powerful tool to use. You're doing this right now on our bodies and where they feel tightness, right? There are any number of ways that one can do this, right? I know sometimes when I wake up in the morning and I have a headache, I literally sit and tap, and the headache disappears. But I have actually seen people. I have used the tool to reduce the compelling need to eat sugar all of the time. It's just not even interesting to me anymore. I have worked with clients who have worked on their addiction to bread, and they're like, "Ugh, meh." I've worked with someone who had a nicotine addiction, and it released by tapping. Right. So if it can tackle addictions, it can also tackle the places where we feel like we want to procrastinate. It's also a really effective tool to actually sit down and figure out, how am I going to work with this client so they understand that you don't get to have me 24/7. We get to set boundaries using EFT so that we're completely connected to our bodies and in a state of calmness so we can handle what needs to be handled with other people. If we feel avoided, it's a way that can shift that avoidance so that we can move and deal with the things that we want to deal with. What are the questions you might have about using this tool and applying it to any part of your practice? Curious about that. And if if you don't have a question, I just want to encourage you to click on the link that Nina put in the chat for you, and you can make sure you um and make sure you can get that so you can actually learn how to don't put you in front of a pack of warm Hawaiian rolls. Yeah, it works with that too. Absolutely. I love how it works with addictions. How does it work for addictions? So, oh, wow, that's amazing. So I part of what when all right, so we often turn to addictive behaviors because we're in this state of fight, flight, or freeze, right? And in the heat of it, it just feels like I want the thing. But there's actually something else that's driving it. So instead of being like, oh my God, I shouldn't be drinking this wine, right? What we're gonna do is just gonna sit with, okay, I love the wine. I actually have done this with ice cream. Oh my gosh, I love the ice cream. I love how creamy it is. This is wonderful, right? And as I'm doing this, it's less. It makes the cortisol doesn't pour into my system, doesn't pour into anyone's system as much as you're working on the thing that you're addicted to. And as you peel the cortisol back, it just doesn't look that interesting. And then you can go back to heal all the things that set you up for that addiction in the first place. So it really is good at really clearing that out. And when we're not addicted as players, boy, it makes it easier to work with clients, right? Ah, yes. And this is a really good question. How can emotional freedom techniques help lawyers maintain ethical competence under Model Rule 1-1 when stress or burnout starts to affect performance? So again, I'm going to repeat this, but I think it's such a profound benefit of what this tool brings, right? When we figure out how to lower our cortisol levels, and apparently it's not a thing that going for a swim and going for a run or et cetera can actually do, right? When we can actually signal directly to our amygdala that we're okay and settle down, that actually helps our performance. Number one, it gets us back in our bodies and we can say, wow, I'm at a point right now that I need to be doing this. And maybe you are, and that's great. But it can also clear, but when we're not in fight, flight, or freeze, we can go, this is the next right step. But if you are finding that you're in deep stress or deep burnout, it's actually helpful to work with a practitioner to actually clear the burnout and stress out so that you can go ahead and do the work that you want to do. So again, it's all about lowering cortisol levels. Are there ethical risks associated with chronic stress that lawyers might overlook? Yes, absolutely, which is why I use the examples I did, right? People become, it depends on your personality, right? People become really avoidant if they're really, really stressed out, right? Maybe you're not looking at details of the work that you're doing as you do it. I know some of the work I used to do was helping clients get benefits from Social Security Administration. And if I missed parts of their medical records, I could completely take their claim with no recourse, right? You want to be able to be that detailed and focused in what you're doing. And that's what happens with the chronic stress that we have, right? We're good, we're brilliant. I'm not saying that, right? But when we're chronically stressed, we miss things for our clients that are really, really helpful. And so I think those are the ethical risks. The other thing is that people will take, when you're under that much stress, you will take risky behavior that you would never have done before. Right. And so if you want to avoid that, you want to make sure that you're keeping yourself in a well state. For attorneys skeptical of alternative techniques, what is research show about EFT's effectiveness in managing anxiety or trauma? So I encourage you to Peter Stapleton's book, The Science of Tapping, is very, very accessible. And in that book, there are all manner of studies showing how people have used EFT, how practitioners have used EFT with trauma and stress and anxiety. She has studies in there showing this work with people who are veterans. Now, in my family, I don't have people who are in the military, but I do know this, that they have experienced trauma on levels that I will never know. And they found that they're not worried after they use EFT, they're not startled by loud sounds. They actually can connect with people. And some of the things that we associate with post military PTSD dissipate. Again, that's in the study. That's not Michelle's thing. but those studies have come through. People with chronic eating disorders, right, which are often connected to anxiety and trauma, again, they dissipate after using EFT. And I really do think it is the whole business of bringing down people's cortisol levels so that our nervous systems are settled. How does EFT compare with more traditional stress management methods like mindfulness, cognitive behavioral strategies, or therapy? Okay, I've never used therapy, so I'm not that kind of. I am a doctor and a historian, so I'm not that kind of doctor. I'm not going to pretend to speak of that. My understanding is that when you actually are working with the amygdala to lower cortisol levels, that's what this technique does. It is so powerful and so important to bring down cortisol levels. I don't think we really have a picture. Cortisol is, again, necessary, but in the levels that we walk around with it in the year of our Lord 2025 are unreal, right? And what cortisol does is, in addition to the things I've talked about, it causes inflammation in the bodies, right? And so when we actually start to lower it, when we actually target that particular hormone, things happen much more quickly and have a long-standing benefit. And that's what I would say. Mindfulness is good. I'm not saying mindfulness is good. I'm just saying to pair it with something like EFT, you can drop your cortisol levels even more and experience more peace. Yes, it can be. Yes, EFT can be integrated confidentially into a busy practice. If you want to use it during the workday, like that first exercise that we did, that's just a touch and breathe. That's all you need to do. You can go to the bathroom, be in the stall, and just touch and breathe and call it a day. You've been in there for 3 minutes, no one will know the difference. Another thing, I taught my son this. He runs track and field, and he would get really, really nervous before races. I would have him, so you take your fingers on the back of your hand between your ring finger and your pinky, and just wrap your hand around it and hold it. That's called, in acupuncture, this place is called the gamma point. It's a very settling and calming place in your body, and all you have to do is hold it and breathe. You could be in court, you could be in negotiation, doing a deposition, you could be writing a briefing, you could be doing any number of things. All you have to do is hold that, and no one's going to be any the wiser. And it's confidential, and no one does it. How does well-being intersect with the duty of due diligence, especially when exhaustion might compromise advocacy? I think you said it, right? We don't want to push ourselves to the point of exhaustion. I think it was in Adriana Huffington's book about sleep, that if you sleep for less than 6 hours a night, you are the equivalent of being drunk, right? And if you are drunk regularly, not because you're drinking alcohol, but you're not getting enough sleep, your advocacy is not going to be what you want it to be. And so it's really helpful to use whatever tools you can get your hands on to manage the stress that you're feeling that might help that. Now, there's that, and then there's perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, which is a whole other thing that I am not qualified to speak to, and that will interrupt your sleep in other ways. Please speak with your providers to help with that. This is very good for stressed out and traumatized clients. Yes, as well, right? If you have a client base, if you're doing criminal law, these days, immigration law, right? You have a client base or matrimonial law. God bless all of you who are doing that work. And I don't mean that to be obnoxious. I mean, like, when really you're doing very hard emotional work, this is really good stuff for clients as well. What are some ways to use EFT to reduce reactivity during client conflicts or high stakes or negotiations? If you are bold enough to want to get people to, you know what, you can just have people say, hey, just take a moment, take a deep breath, pause. Can you just do this and just breathe? Right? That might be a way to do it. And maybe you're the one and if you're just the person, if you're the one who needs to be pulled off the edge, just do that for yourself. That's all you need to do. It's like I said, you could do it I mean, I'm doing it up here so I can show you what I'm doing. You would just put your hands in your lap. Oh, in what situations might EFT prevent vicarious trauma or compassion fatigue? Absolutely. We have been working on this in a very general way, right? I think you touch and breathe and like just did the neck thing. But we can work, it's really good with vicarious trauma because it's a very gentle modality. We're not going to jump into then the client did this and I did that. No, 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 no. We actually, part of the techniques, part of it is how do we approach these things? We create as much distance from it as possible before moving in because we want your nervous system settled before we jump into major trauma that you're handling. And that's why it's actually very helpful to handling the trauma. You can clear that and move on. It's absolutely doable. And a skilled practitioner is not just going to have you jump into the hardest, most difficult thing. You will use all of the techniques to get you to distance yourself and then moving closer to it as your nervous system can handle that. Yes, excess cortisol is what makes you want to reach for your comfort food. Exactly, when you're highly stressed. It's cortisol. Also, our bodies have, again, this, not that I'm a doctor, but our bodies have a fair amount of mold, and what mold does is it needs sugar to survive. So sometimes it's not even it's some cortisol, but if you have a mold builds up in your body, it's the mold ordering, hey, I need that piece of cake now. So it's not necessarily something that you know that for sure, but it actually is really good for helping you reach for that comfort food. I actually haven't had a vegan ice cream in a very long time because I don't want it. How can law firms ethically encourage or implement EFT programs without crossing into areas that feel too personal or invasive for employees? I think one way of doing it is having someone who can work with employees individually and paying them to do it. I think that's one way to do it. Another way is you could do group work, but you really tell people what we do in here stays in here and you don't repeat it. And I personally, if I were that practitioner and someone repeated that stuff, I'd be like, and you're not coming back to this. You have to respect that so people can really work what they need to work on. I'm going to answer a couple more questions. What are a few simple in the moment tapping sequences that lawyers can do discreetly before hearing? Yeah, so there's the gamut point. Big fan of that. And there's the touch and breathe. Go in a bathroom, something just touch and breathe on all the points. You can also tap and breathe. Right? You may want to go somewhere. You might be bold. I mean, I live in New York. I do this on the subway, but we're weird anyway. Right? You just tap on the points and breathe. That's a really helpful thing to do. Well, EFT does help lawyers stay calm and clear-headed under stress. I think it's actually really helpful that it'll help you craft what you're trying to say to somebody so you make sure that you hit your points. And it'll help you, it'll hold what like I'm saying this, or I'm not backing down. It'll help you be able to do that. So the name of the book, The Science of EFT, it's in the downloaded materials. There's a bibliography, and it's the Justia book. So you want to make sure before you're going sideways with the client, you want to check in with yourself and see how you actually feel. If you actually can't feel that you're in your body anymore, that's a good sign that your stress levels are probably too much for it and will compromise your ethical judgment, right? If you're using substances more, that's a good sign. I mean, of course, when people are using substances in their addiction like that, they may not be so prone. Like, I need this, right? That might be the feeling. But those are two signs of that's happening. You're feeling tightness with your body or you're sick all the time. That's another sign as well. And I answered that question. I think as you use EFT more and more, it becomes much more easy to use the tool to establish the boundaries that you need because you're not terrified about what people are doing, right? You can say, okay, that like you can hold your own. Again, like just the gamut point, just grab the gamut point, and that won't cause tension. Those are really good questions. Thank you. Thank you. And for those of you who are watching this later, if we do have questions, feel free to email me. I think my contact information is in this. Okay, so today we talked directly on the way that we could tell with the necks how we directly felt about the stresses connected to lawyering, right? And let's just take a moment to kind of lock in the work that we've done today. So, if you want to, but feel safe, go on. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. And that's him. And I want you to picture waking up in the morning with an unusual smile on your face. And you have that smile because you know that today's going to go the way that you want it to go. You wake up, go to the bathroom, take a shower, brush your teeth, all the things. You pack your bag, and you have a little in your stuff that you don't know how. And you go and get your favorite coffee, your favorite coffee place. You go in the office, close your door, because you know today that no one's going to be bothering you, because you're going to say no. Put the coffee down, and you start working on that client matter. And you find yourself in 1 hour making unbelievable progress on the stuff that you have to do in days. Why? Because you feel focused, calm in your body, and pleased. Because you have actually been using this tool, EFT, regularly. It's made a huge difference in your practice. You could actually take lunch that day, come back in the afternoon, and you finish some other work. And it is you bill more hours than you normally bill in any given day. And you actually can leave the office by 6:30. Well, what on earth has happened? That's the power of this tool. You go ahead and open your eyes if you like. But that's actually what's possible when our nervous systems are not on fight or freeze. When we use this tool, we can do the kinds of things that Sarah did in her practice. She had a practice that had lots of unpaying guardianships. And now she has guardianship clients that have multi-million-dollar estates. She gets paid for the work that she does. I had a client who, I told you about her. She was spinning about writing appellate briefs. And she went and she won, and she wins consistently. But they reached out for help with their practice. Your physical and mental health and well-being are critical to making sure that you have the practice that you want. EFT is one tool that you can use to make sure that your mental and physical well-being are at their best, so you can do the work that you want to do for your clients. We tapped on, the physical implications of cortisol and stress on ourselves. You can tap on all sorts of things, right? So with that said, always make sure you're a first-rate version of yourself instead of a second-rate version of somebody else. That was by Judy Garland. That's what EFT is capable of doing for you. Thank you so much for having me here this afternoon. I am so thrilled to hear all the questions that you had about EFT. Don't hesitate to contact me or grab a call and talk to me about using this in your practice, because I think it's well hidden secret. It's not so secret anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. We are a little bit short on time just for CLE, so we have a few more questions in the queue. Is that all right if we go ahead and go through them?
Absolutely.
Perfect. I really appreciate your extra time. Thank you so much. The first question is, what's the recommended way for lawyers to track whether EFT is actually improving their well-being or performance? What would you recommend there?
That's an excellent question. So when I was working with you, you might have noticed that I was asking you what time, as we turned our neck, what that I was doing that so we could track what was happening. Often when we use this tool, we will ask ourselves, okay, about the thing we don't like, right? George, the client George, how much we take what's called the subjective unit of distress, a SUDS. 0 means there's no distress associated with something. 10 means please peel me off the ceiling yesterday. So if I think about George and I'm like at an 8, okay. I'm crazy. And we tab George would do all the things. And I do that. And then I ask myself that question again. How do I feel about George now? Okay, more like a 5. I know I've actually made a difference in my well-being. And I know that I'll probably make a difference with performance when I'm dealing with George. And you just do that until you can get that down to 0. And it depends on what, it may be best to work with a practitioner. Ethical red flags, attorneys should watch that indicates stress is starting. Oh, wow. So when you're taking risky behaviors, right? Oh, I can do that. When you're in avoidance, or you're not taking things you're not taking things as seriously. Like, who cares if I tell them that? When you start doing that kind of thing, you're not giving all of the attention that you need to give to a client's matter that you never would have done before. That's a sign that your judgment's becoming affected by stress, right? It's just like, oh, it's just another contract. I'll get over it. And then you don't want to be there. Ideal length for a daily EFT maintenance routine to ruin. Before I go to sleep at night, I literally just touch and breathe. All the points, I just touch and breathe, and I can shut for me, it's about turn my brain off so I can sleep. I can't sleep when my brain's running. I don't think anyone can. I think that's part of why sleep is so impaired for lawyers, but that just touching and breathing is a really helpful maintenance practice. Quiet burnout. I think if you're in quiet burnout, these questions are really showing when things get really, really intense. And I actually would recommend working with somebody who actually has this modality under their belt to do that. Like, it's like you probably will need somebody to help you with that and get you back to stasis, if you will. But if people are experiencing quiet burnout and you feel depleted, detached, or unable to focus, I actually think if you don't feel like you're up for talking to somebody, then just start to just really use touch and breathe. I gave you a way to set that up. You can start to set it up using what I left you with, and actually on that link the first link that I gave you, I put in a video to show you how to do how to pull all of this together, and you can use different words to do it. But again, please, that's a time to reach out to someone for help. Smaller firms or solo practice implement EFT practices affordably without putting the burden of additional administrative work. Well, this should take no administrative work. So I'll say that. Again, if you want to DIY it, it's touch and breathe. Again, you can just reach out to a practitioner. Often, they'll charge on a monthly basis and put it on subscriptions. You don't have to think about it. I mean, that's an easy way to do it. Yeah. Start to onboarding and help new associates. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think, God, we should do that, right? Especially because they just came off of the bar exam. God bless us. I actually would love to get in front of people before they take the bar. I have been known to have meetings where I just start with getting people to touch and breathe. Like, you just start there so people can go, oh, okay, well, I'm back. I'm here, right? And that puts you in a position where you can go ahead and to manage some of it. And again, if firms are able to hire people to actually work with them to do it by contract or whatever, that's fine. That's a really effective way to do that. And we can put together programs that actually help people at any point in their career to do that. Yeah, that's my answer. And I'm here for that. Like, if you want to talk to me about doing that, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I just want to open one final thing for you. If there's any other resources that you'd like to share, whether that's links or websites that you want to direct them to. I know obviously you have your website, but if there's other resources that you'd like to share or things that you'd like to point them to in the materials, can you share that with us now?
I think I will say that. I will say this. A really good practitioner is I am certified. I don't just do this. I've gone through training and all of this. And so if someone's properly certified, you can go to EFT International. It's literally EFTinternational.org. And you will have a whole database of practitioners there and lots of it. Oh, it's a really rich website about the research going on with emotional freedom techniques. I would also recommend following Peta Stapleton, PETA. Again, her name shows up in the bibliography on her YouTube page. She is zealous about the research about EFT, and she's always doing new things. Her latest thing is working with people with dementia. Keep that. It's close to my heart. with dementia and EFT to see if it actually can make a difference. So she's trying it. She's applying it to absolutely everything. PETA, Stapleton, PETA, like, like the Don't Kill the Animals, org. Yeah, Stapleton, STAPLETON. So, yeah, those are a couple other, but I don't, maybe that's her website, and she also has a YouTube page.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Thompson, for sharing those additional resources. I also wanted to point folks to where they can download those materials. If you haven't already been able to do that, you can visit the page, log into your account, and then there will be a button just below the thumbnail to download those materials. Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson, for answering all of our questions and for being here with us today, just introducing and demonstrating this technique. It's really helpful. We want to thank you all so much for joining us for another Justia webinar. As I mentioned at the top of today's presentation, today is the last day of our 5-day sprint of ethics programming. So if you joined us for all the sessions this week, you can get all 5 of those CLE ethics credits. If you're not upgraded to Justia Connect Pro yet, you can do so and watch any of the programs from this week or previous webinars on demand to get those credits that you might need. You can also visit that link, pro.justia.com, to upgrade. That upgrade not only affords you the CLE credits, but you'll also get an enhanced directory profile with a pro badge. You'll get no competitor ads on that profile, our access to AI-powered chat, Justia Chat, to help you gain those leads, as well as $200 off of select Justia marketing solutions. So be sure to check that out. Thank you again, Dr. Thompson, for your time, and have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Thanks so much. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next video.